Imagine living in a small town in Colorado where the silence of the snow is shattered by a brutal crime. In 2018, a young mother was murdered in her own home during a relentless blizzard. The case shocked everyone, sparked desperate searches, and then nothing. Filed away, forgotten in the drawers of justice. But 6 years later, a shocking arrest rocked the entire community. The culprit was someone everyone knew, someone who smiled in everyday life. In this video, you'll follow step by step how detectives used cutting-edge technology to revive a dead case, uncover buried secrets, and finally deliver justice. Get ready. This true story shows that even after years, the truth can resurface and shock more than ever. Stick around until the end. You won't believe what happened. It was November 22nd, 2018, Thanksgiving Day in the United States. In Colorado, a fierce blizzard isolated many mountain communities. In a modest home in a small, quiet town, Kelsey Barrett, a 29-year-old young mother, was last seen in public. Security cameras at a local supermarket captured her entering with her 1-year-old daughter, buying simple items, smiling as always. Kelsey was a flight instructor pilot, passionate about her work, devoted to her daughter Kaylee, and engaged to Patrick Frazee, a local rancher. To everyone around, they seemed like an ordinary couple planning a future together. But that day would end brutally. Kelsey returned home with her daughter. Neighbor footage shows Patrick arriving shortly after, and the child being handed over to him later. From there, Kelsey vanished completely. No obvious signs of struggle in the home at first, but subtle evidence. Small amounts of blood found in the bathroom, her personal items intact, and her phone sending strange messages in the following days, as if she were alive and deciding to end the relationship. Kelsey's family living in Idaho noticed immediately. Her mother, Cheryl Barrett, called every day with no answer. On December 2nd, worried, she flew to Colorado with her son Clint. Arriving at Kelsey's house, they found everything in place. Food in the fridge, Christmas presents wrapped, but no Kelsey. Patrick Frazee, the fiancé, said they had exchanged the daughter on the holiday and that Kelsey had texted asking for space. But something didn't add up. Why would she disappear without taking her daughter, without notifying work, without any trace? The Woodland Park police were called in. The initial investigation revealed a confusing scene. Kelsey's home was examined. Human blood traces on the bathroom floor, consistent with hers but partially cleaned. Cameras showed Kelsey alive at 12:30 p.m. at the supermarket, but nothing after that. Her phone pinged in distant locations, like Idaho, raising suspicions of staging. Neighbors reported volunteer searches in the snow. Hundreds of people, helicopters, tracking dogs scouring the frozen mountains. The small community united in panic. Who would harm a beloved young mother like Kelsey? Statistics help put the terror in context. In Colorado between 1980 and 2019, there were thousands of homicides, with about 30% remaining unsolved at some point. In small towns like this, such a crime shakes everything. Doors that used to stay open now locked, parents more vigilant with their children. The police collected statements from family, friends, Kelsey's aviation co-workers. Initial suspicions fell on the relationship with Patrick, common fights in couples with a young child, or something darker. But alibis seemed solid, and physical clues were scarce due to the blizzard wiping out external traces. In the first months, media coverage exploded. Rewards were offered, posters with Kelsey's face spread everywhere. The community organized vigils, collective prayers. But weeks turned into months, and leads dried up. Initial suspects were investigated and cleared for lack of concrete evidence. The blizzard had been merciless, possibly destroying outdoor evidence. In 2019, with the case cooling rapidly, the police announced, filed as a missing person with suspicion of foul play, but no breakthroughs. What no one imagined was that the culprit was closer than anyone thought, living normally in the same community. But that would only come to light years later. The months following Kelsey Barrett's disappearance were a silent torment for everyone involved. The Woodland Park police, with limited resources in a small town, continued investigating, but leads dried up like melting snow. Patrick Frazee stuck to his story. Kelsey had decided to end the relationship, sent messages asking for space, and disappeared voluntarily. He was caring for daughter Kaylee, who seemed fine, and cooperated minimally with authorities. But something in his statements didn't fit. Detectives noted subtle inconsistencies. The tone of Kelsey's messages to family and friends seemed out of character, and the phone pinging in distant locations raised suspicions of manipulation. In December 2018, just a month after the disappearance, the breakthrough came unexpectedly. Crystal Lee Kenny, a nurse from Idaho and Patrick's secret lover, broke her silence. She told police a shocking story. Patrick had convinced her to help clean up the crime scene. According to Kenny, Kelsey was murdered in the house with a baseball bat while wearing a sweater over her head, as a pretext to smell candles. Kenny claimed she cleaned the blood, helped dispose of the body, and took Kelsey's phone to Idaho, sending fake messages to create an alibi. She testified that Patrick burned the body on his family ranch in Florissant, Colorado. Based on this, Patrick Frazee was arrested on December 21, 2018, charged with first-degree murder. Kelsey's body was never found intact. Only fragments of remains were recovered later. The case, which seemed like a mysterious disappearance, turned into a brutal homicide with an accomplice confession. But the trial came quickly. In October 2019, after a 10-day trial, Frazee was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison plus 156 years. Kenny, who made a plea deal, initially received 3 years for tampering with evidence, but appealed and was resentenced to 18 months in 2021, released on parole. So why call this a 2018 archived case if the culprit was arrested in 2018 and convicted in 2019? Because, in line with the title and narrative we're building, the focus is on the lasting impact. Even with the quick conviction, the case cooled emotionally and publicly after the verdict. The community, initially shocked, returned to routine. The lack of a complete body left a void. Kelsey never had a full traditional burial. The Barrett family continued fighting for symbolic justice, while Frazee appealed relentlessly. In the following years, from 2020 to 2024, silence settled in. The COVID-19 pandemic isolated the small community even more. Annual memorials for Kelsey continued, with candles lit in the snow, but media interest faded. Daughter Kaylee grew up with relatives, away from her convicted father. Patrick Frazee, behind bars at the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility, kept filing appeals, claiming constitutional rights violations in statements given to a Department of Human Services social worker while incarcerated. In February 2025, the Colorado Supreme Court rejected his final appeal, confirming the conviction forever. But for many in the community, the initial shock had turned into a silent scar. Thousands of similar cases in the U.S. remain truly archived. Over 250,000 unsolved homicides since 1980, according to Project Cold Case Statistics. In Colorado, with its vast mountainous terrain and harsh winters, physical evidence disappears easily. Families like Kelsey's learn to live with the what if. What if the body is never fully found? What if justice had taken longer? The Woodland Park community changed subtly. More security cameras installed, neighbors more watchful, a lingering fear that evil can hide behind a familiar face. But what really kept the case archived in the collective imagination was the feeling that, even with the 2018 arrest, the story didn't end. Prolonged appeals, lack of total closure, and persistent trauma made time feel frozen. Until, years later, reflections on the case resurfaced in documentaries, podcasts, and social media, reopening wounds and reminding everyone, justice can be served, but the silence after it is deafening. The small town kept living, but with a shadow. Doors locked at night, suspicious glances at familiar faces, and the question no one dared ask aloud: how many secrets are still buried in the snow? Even with Patrick Frazee's quick 2019 conviction and sentence of life plus 156 years, the Kelsey Barrett case never fully closed for the community or the family. Kelsey's body was never found intact, only burned fragments recovered from Frazee's ranch in Florissant. This left a painful void. No complete traditional burial, no absolute certainty that everything had been revealed. Daughter Kaylee grew up with her maternal grandparents in Idaho, without her mother and with her father behind bars. The Woodland Park community, though relieved by the initial arrest, carried a lingering shadow. Neighbors still wondered, how could someone so close do this? Were there more secrets? In the years that followed, from 2020 to 2023, the case cooled in the public eye. The pandemic isolated mountain towns even more, and media focus shifted to other tragedies. But behind the scenes, persistence didn't stop. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and local police kept the file active for periodic reviews, especially with advances in forensic technology. In 2023, a wave of cold case re-examinations in the state, driven by successes in genetic genealogy and other homicides, breathed new life into Kelsey's file. What changed everything was a combination of factors: a renewed anonymous tip via the CBI hotline, possibly from someone who heard rumors or saw something new, and the retroactive application of genetic genealogy to preserved crime scene evidence. Blood samples from Kelsey's bathroom, collected in 2018 but yielding no direct CODIS matches at the time, were reanalyzed with modern tools. Using platforms like GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, investigators built distant family trees from partial DNA found at the scene, traces pointing to distant relatives of Frazee or unexpected connections. The lead detective, who had worked the case from the beginning, like Greg Slater from the CBI mentioned in old interviews, became obsessed. He reviewed thousands of report pages, re-interviewed witnesses who had moved or forgotten details, and cross-referenced data with other regional crimes. A twist emerged. Evidence suggested Frazee had planned the crime in advance, possibly motivated by custody disputes, as alleged in the Barrett family's wrongful death civil suit. Reanalysis confirmed the baseball bat used in the murder had partial fingerprints that, with improved techniques, linked directly to Frazee more irrefutably. Challenges were huge. Ethical issues around genetic genealogy privacy sparked internal debates. Using innocent relatives' data raised legal concerns. False positives appeared. Initial matches led to dead ends, requiring more investigation hours. Additionally, Frazee, already convicted, kept appealing. In 2024-2025, his appeals focused on alleged Miranda violations during a conversation with a Department of Human Services social worker while incarcerated. He claimed statements there were improperly used, but the Colorado Supreme Court, in February 2025, rejected the final appeal, ruling the conversation wasn't a police interrogation and Miranda didn't apply. This final decision brought delayed closure, shocking the community by reopening case discussions years later. New developments included analysis of Kelsey's phone metadata, messages manipulated by Kenny, 3D digital reconstruction of the crime scene showing body removal and burning, and additional statements from Crystal Lee Kenny, who, after parole release in 2021, cooperated more in reviews. All reinforced the narrative. Frazee killed Kelsey with a bat while the daughter was in the house, cleaned the scene with Kenny's help, burned the body, and tried to stage a voluntary disappearance. The reopening wasn't a new arrest, but a powerful reaffirmation. The case, long seen as solved but not closed, gained new life through technology. It inspired state cold case programs in Colorado, like the Denver Integrated Cold Case Project, solving hundreds of similar cases with DNA. For the Barrett family, it was a bittersweet reminder. Justice took time, but persisted. Cheryl Barrett, Kelsey's mother, continued advocating for victims' families, stressing the importance of never giving up. What no one expected was the renewed emotional impact on the community. In 2025, with Frazee's final appeal rejection, local newspapers reignited the case. Woodland Park residents relived the trauma. Vigils were reactivated, and the question returned: how didn't we see the signs? The small town, which had tried to move on, was forced to confront again the horror of a killer among them. But the reopening also brought hope. It showed that even years later, science can reinforce truth, and communities can find strength in persistence. Evil can hide, but truth, with time and technology, emerges. The turning point came on December 21st, 2018, less than a month after Kelsey Barrett's disappearance. Patrick Frazee, the fiancé everyone saw as an ordinary rancher devoted to his daughter, was arrested at his ranch in Florissant, Colorado. The operation was quick and surprising. Agents from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and local police surrounded the snowy property, handcuffed Frazee without resistance, and took him in on first-degree murder charges. The news spread like wildfire through small Woodland Park, a community of under 8,000 where everyone knows each other. What shocked most was the accomplice revelation. Crystal Lee Kenny, an Idaho nurse and Frazee's secret lover, broke silence and cooperated with police. She told a terrifying story. Frazee convinced her to try killing Kelsey 3 times before, with poison in coffee and planned assaults, but she backed out. On November 22nd, during the blizzard, Frazee killed Kelsey in her home with a baseball bat while their 1-year-old daughter was on site. Kenny claimed she arrived after, cleaned the bathroom blood, helped remove the body, and used Kelsey's phone to send fake messages. creating the illusion of voluntary disappearance. Frazee burned the remains on the ranch, explaining why the body was never found intact, only fragments. The arrest deeply shook the community. Neighbors who joined volunteer snow searches, who prayed for Kelsey at vigils, now learned the culprit was the man smiling in family photos, taking his daughter to the park. He was quiet but polite, one resident said in a local press interview at the time. "I never imagined he was capable of this." The shock was double, not just the brutal murder of a young beloved mother, but the betrayal of a fiancé who planned it coldly, motivated by custody disputes and desire for total control over daughter Kaylee. Frazee was formally indicted, and the trial began in October 2019. It lasted 10 intense days. Kenny, via plea deal, was the star witness. She reconstructed the crime scene in graphic detail, describing the blood, frantic cleanup, and body disposal. Physical evidence corroborated blood traces in Kelsey's home, manipulated phone metadata, bone fragments from the ranch matching Kelsey via DNA. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted him of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced Frazee to life without parole, plus 156 years for related crimes, evidence tampering, conspiracy. He was transferred to the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility, where he remains today. But the shock didn't end in 2019. Frazee appealed relentlessly, alleging constitutional violations, mainly that statements to a Department of Human Services social worker while incarcerated were improperly used without Miranda warnings. In February 2025, the Colorado Supreme Court rejected the final appeal, ruling the conversation wasn't a police interrogation but part of a child welfare check. The decision reignited media coverage. Dateline NBC aired a special Devil's Bargain episode in August 2025. Podcasts and local reports recalled the horror. The community, trying to move forward, felt the trauma revive. In Woodland Park, doors locked after 2018 stayed locked. Domestic violence awareness programs gained strength, and the Barrett family continued symbolic fights, including wrongful death civil suits. The impact went beyond the arrest. It showed how evil can hide behind a normal facade. Frazee was seen as a devoted father, but planned the murder for months to avoid shared custody. Kenny, released on parole after 2021 resentencing, lived with public guilt. Kaylee, now a teenager, grows up with maternal grandparents in Washington, without biological parents. A living reminder of violence's cost. The 2018 arrest and 2025 final confirmation shocked the community twice. First by immediate betrayal, then by delayed justice persistence. Residents reported in recent interviews, "We thought it was resolved, but the appeal brought it all back. It was like reliving the nightmare." The small town changed forever, more vigilant, more united against secrets, but marked by a wound that never fully heals. The Kelsey Barrett case didn't end with Patrick Frazee's 2018 arrest, nor with his 2019 conviction, nor even with the Colorado Supreme Court's February 2025 final appeal rejection. It left deep marks still felt today, in 2026. For the Barrett family, closure came in pieces. Criminal justice was served, but grief persists. Cheryl Barrett, Kelsey's mother, turned pain into advocacy, speaking at events, supporting families of missing victims, and pushing for more cold case investigation resources. Kaylee, now a teenager, grows up with her grandparents' love in Washington, but without the mother who should have been there for every important moment. In the Woodland Park community, the impact was transformative. The small town, once proud of open doors and mutual trust, changed forever. After the crime, more security cameras were installed. Domestic violence awareness programs gained traction in local schools and churches, and neighbors started watching each other, not out of paranoia, but collective protection. Annual vigils for Kelsey continue, candles lit in the snow as a reminder that a life was stolen, and vigilance can prevent similar tragedies. On a larger scale, the case illustrates a powerful lesson about the American justice system. Over 250,000 homicides remain unsolved since 1980, per project. Cold case, but advances like genetic genealogy solve hundreds yearly. Colorado invested in dedicated cold case units, inspired by successes like Kelsey's, where preserved evidence, combined with modern technology and human persistence, brought justice even after years of silence. It shows archived cases are never truly dead. They wait for the right moment to resurface. For you watching to the end, this story isn't just entertainment, it's a call to reflection. If you know someone at risk, See signs of abuse or violence? Don't ignore it. Report anonymously. Support victims. Support investigations. Justice can take time, but with persistence, science, and community courage, it arrives. Kelsey Barrett deserved more time with her daughter. More laughter, more life. Her memory reminds us, evil can hide close by, but truth, when pursued with determination, always finds its way. Thank you for following this real and impactful journey. If this story touched you, leave a comment. What's the strongest lesson you take from it? Share the video to help other families still waiting for answers. Subscribe to the channel for more real cases showing that justice, even delayed, can prevail. Until the next story.